Back and bigger than ever, it's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and George.
Well, it's time once again for the unofficial 40 podcast from the Soonerscoop.com crew. As, a big voice guy, we will get that. That's on my to-do list, as well as getting George keys to all the water room, basically, too. But no, we've got a lot going on. It is preseason football. We've had 2 media sessions this week. We're here recording on a Tuesday afternoon, and you'll be listening to this on Wednesday, I'm sure. But hopefully nothing massive breaks in the time that we put up the pod and the end of practice today. But the guys are all here. Josh is here. He's getting ready for a little vacay. I don't know if you want me to say that because we know the board will hammer you for always being on vacation. But so we're doing it a little bit early, though. Josh's vacation gets you a little bit of an early pod, which is nice. I also feel like I have some office business that I need to put out there here at the beginning. And I'm not going to attack George, I swear. He's been pretty good, since the trash incident.
I bought a new watch.
You did make me proud by buying a new watch, and it's a good-looking watch.
So what's the office attack? Like, what's the...
Well, this happens separately. It involves you and Eddie. This happened separately, and it had to do with me having to kind of redo the office stuff, and I'll explain that. Like, the reason I had to redo it is because the audio stuff is a lot more involved than I initially planned it to be. So that we can have audio going from room to room and studio to studio. So I just needed to redo it. It's all done now. I think there's 6 cables I have to plug in, and then I'm done. And I just got them from Amazon today. So anyway, we're sitting in here talking about all this stuff, and George just looks at me. It's a very, I think about this. Like, it's not any. You weren't out of bounds in asking the question. You know what I'm getting ready to talk about?
I have no idea.
So George says, what happens if you die?
Oh, yeah.
And I thought...
It's our master plan, Josh. I think that it just goes to the master plan.
Well, and what
George,
he's referring to is...
don't put a light on it.
And he's saying, like, who's going to hook shit up if you die, and who's going to run things if you die?
There's a lot of wires.
YouTube is... By the way, you two are killing it on YouTube right now. And it's a very small portion of what we're going to be. So the little bit that we're doing now, everybody's loving. And the comments on YouTube, like, there are some bad ones, but, from time to time. But generally, it's been overwhelmingly positive, which I didn't think any social media could be that way anymore.
The response has been very good, and I think it's something that we're pretty excited about doing, maybe bi-weekly or weekly for sure throughout the season. And
expanding on it. Josh will have his features on there.
Obviously, we'll keep doing them. But yeah.
It's going to be fun.
So messed up.
George, I don't think you want to go there because I sit in another room and listen to your tics, and I know exactly what they are, right?
I'm so paranoid about now saying obviously, and my entire clothing is done. Like, I felt like I dressed pretty well, but, yeah, I'm going to have to go to Peter Millar and basically spend an entire paycheck.
Those comments were kind of like, oh, crap, am I going to have to start buying clothes for these guys now?
I got a lot of George looks good, too, though.
If there's an outfitter out there, if there's anybody that works with Peter Millar that listens to the podcast, please contact me. Please contact me. That would be fantastic.
And we might even do a deal, just trade in product.
Or Oak Tree National, if they just want to let me come out and have like
just go to town.
Like a little buyer spree.
What about Jimmy Austin?
I like Jimmy Austin, but they have a bunch of a
lot of OU logos on stuff.
Yeah, and I don't usually do that. So I like some of the Jimmy Austin stuff that they have. I don't think that they have very much Peter Millar though.
Is Cutter and Buck still around? I haven't even looked at golf clothing in a long time.
Cutter and Buck is definitely still around.
Are they like the lower level now? Because they used to be like way up there.
I think it's more ironic now if you have it. Which is
like the Corn Ferry Tour.
Well, I would say that like if you found a badass vintage Cutter and Buck shirt, I would be interested in it. But I don't know if it's necessarily something that I would go out
resonates with the youngers, the youngs these days.
Right.
So anyway, George is like, what if you die? I'm like, well, George, I have thought about that. Like, we need to start, teaching everybody how to do certain things. And, Eddie will eventually learn all the stuff. I've been building him his own little workspace room. So He can edit things, and I can edit things with him. And then, just unprompted, I'm sitting here, and I asked Eddie, I said, George asked me, like, what if I die? Like, what are you guys going to do with The Office? And your answer both shocked me.
Point blank.
And made me laugh.
Point blank.
Which is?
Josh and I would sell everything. And we'd split the profit, and
it would just
we would move along.
It would just be a yard sale, basically.
I think that, like, if you hadn't died and then you found out that we sold everything and then just found out that we were shooting everything on like an iPhone 13, that would kill you. That would absolutely kill you. That would. And even in,
I don't think that Josh would allow that to happen.
Even in heaven, I think
this is his money too that's been spent.
Sure. Well, that's why we're trying to recoup some of it. Yeah, exactly.
So that there is no question that you have to know what you are, and I have to know that I can't run that, Carey. There's no way on earth. So
I think Eddie could, but Eddie could, but here's Eddie. Like when you give Eddie something new, he just looks at it and goes, "I hate it." He's like Ron Swanson a little bit. Like he just does not like. We've talked about this before. He doesn't like change at all.
There's some truth in that, Eddie. I think you're a little anti anything new.
I'm not saying that's wrong. I mean, I think that I just like being very kind of knowing what's going on. But what you do
really well. Like you can edit stuff really fast. You can get up video really fast.
Because I know how to do everything.
Right.
Like I know all the like shortcuts and all that kind of stuff on the computer that I've already preset.
Can we turn the fan on?
Yeah.
The remote's right next to your laptop there. Just hit the power
that's absolutely the same. The content that we've dragged over from the old site to here that I can pretty much do it the same way. There's no, like that hot board, I can do that in minutes, like just minutes. Now, the Grant Bricks breakdown still needs to be fixed. The formatting on that, I did not fix it properly, and it looked stupid, and I didn't realize it until last night, and I have just been running around, but I will, at some point, we're going to talk basketball or something, and I'll fix it. But yeah, like I'm with Eddie. Like once I can find a rhythm in something, I really like doing it because it's very easy for me to keep producing it the same way.
And see, I'm the exact opposite of you two. Once I master something, I'm done. I'm like, did it, moving on to something else. By the way, you will have to hire a network specialist if I die. There's no doubt about that.
I think we'd have to hire a lot of different things.
Yeah, there's a lot of different positions that would become open at Sooner Scoop.
So anyway,
we've got openings.
Anyway, that's my office banter for the week. It is the Enjoy Vision Fresh Perspective look around. We have someone with perfect vision here, more so than any of the rest. I know George has inquired about possibly getting perfect vision.
He probably needs it.
Wow.
Standing out there at practice today.
Hey, I saw practice just as well as you did.
I think he saw practice better.
Yeah, I was pointing out guys.
Well,
Eddie's
that's
vision
because I was telling you
blocked.
the numbers.
Also, we weren't watching practice. We were just...
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We would never do something like that.
I was just staring off into the oblivion.
We're blocked by buses. I mean...
Technically, we were.
Yes.
So that is very true. That is very true.
They park the buses right there where you can't just watch from the parking lot. So we don't watch anything. No, but getting into that real quick. I mean, last 2 days, we've had a lot of interviews. We've been able to watch a second viewing. I think, Eddie, you spent more time kind of over on the defense. I've spent more time with the receivers because we didn't have a lot of receiver pictures. I do have a ton of pictures I'll be releasing and that we'll be using in editorial and stuff like that. But you've seen the videos. Just overall, today you got to talk to Dylan Gabriel, talk to Jeff Lebby yesterday, and a lot of other players. But let's talk about Dylan Gabriel real quick and just kind of your impressions from what he had to say after practice.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of, I guess, been a little bit of an I don't know about underlying theme by any means, but I do think that it's quite interesting that Oklahoma has a quarterback that's coming back for his second year in Norman. And Jeff Lebby kind of started this when he was talking about during the preseason interview session with all the coaches, just as far as how close he was to becoming a top 10 all-time college passing quarterback. And, I thought it was somewhat interesting. I didn't want to try and get a got you type question, but I did ask him today that, do you feel a little bit undervalued? Because all anybody wants to talk about around here is Jackson Arnold, and rightfully so. He's going to get a lot of the headlines, especially this early in camp. But I did want to ask him, does he feel undervalued? I was expecting the answer that he gave us, in that, wins are the most important thing, team first, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I do think, it's very interesting that he is a quarterback that has played a shit ton of football. And, I think locally, I don't know about maybe nationally, it does feel like he's a little bit undervalued in what he's going to bring to this offense moving forward, with so many wide receivers that are unproven, with a tight end position group that seems like it has a bunch of question marks, maybe outside of Austin Stogner and just knowing who that is. So, it's all going to have to happen on Saturdays. He's obviously going to have to play well. I don't think anybody has gone back and said that he played extremely well at the beginning of the season last year. But if they can get the guy that, as we've said throughout the entire offseason, if they can get the guy that played, in Lubbock at times, and then obviously the guy that played in the Cheez-It Bowl, I think this offense can be pretty good.
Well, and I asked Jalil Farouk yesterday, do you see a different version of Dylan Gabriel? And he was like, absolutely. Whatever it was in that bowl game, as you mentioned, it opened things up or made him more comfortable or made him take ownership.
This is something that George and I have talked about. I think that just the idea of knowing that there wasn't another game on the schedule really helped out. It seemed like when they were able to run him and get him involved in the run game, and not being flooded from the pocket, I'm talking, called runs, it makes his life a lot easier. He wants to be able to do that. And I think, with Jackson obviously somewhat, quote unquote, ready to go, if he goes down, I think it scared the shit out of everybody in that offensive meeting room when they saw what happened at the Cotton Bowl and they saw what happened in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I would say too, it just seems like he's aware of his shortcomings. He knows exactly where he needs to improve, and maybe that's because he hasn't improved in some of those areas over the course of his career. But the third and fourth down stuff, him talking about that and being more accurate there. I know I talked to Drake Stoops about it. Said Dylan's been really good about that and harping on those, and they've been working on those. Sounds like more than they did a year ago. So I don't know. It's a few plays here, a few plays there that could make all the difference for him and the offense next season. I just don't know. And I don't know if we want to get into Doom Pod area, but is he going to just all of a sudden become a more accurate quarterback overnight? I don't think so. But can he complete a couple more passes on third and fourth downs in crucial situations? I think so. And some of that falls on Levy. I think a lot of times people just say, oh, well, Dylan Gabriel needs to be better. I think some of the play calling could have been better last year. So,
well, and to be fair, there's not, J.P. Lossman is on staff, but he's not an assistant. They don't really have a quarterback coach. Levy was an offensive lineman when he did play, and then he got hurt and didn't finish his career. And I'm sure he's picked up a lot of things. You don't have to. Kevin Sumlin was a guy that was a defensive player in college and became, kind of an offensive guy in college. So it's not necessary to play a position, to coach a position, but at the same time, you feel more comfortable when you got a guy like a Josh Heupel that's also your offensive coordinator that played the position.
Yeah, and I wonder, can a Seth Luttrell help with some of that? Because he seems like somebody that is coming, and again, he's I think his official title is just an offensive analyst, but he's clearly working with the quarterbacks the most. He's always on Jeff Levy's hip. So maybe somebody like that can help him along. I think even just having Jackson be there helps him. It pushes. Obviously, competition helps you get better. That's the cliche, right? But I think he's also just a guy that maybe can help Dylan in certain areas, and maybe help Dylan play a little bit more loose, like Eddie was saying.
Well, and every day we go out there, they're doing individual drills with the quarterbacks where they're making them move their feet and throw on the run and go to the right and go to their left. They're always working on quarterback footwork. But I think what we saw a year ago is just in the pocket is where sometimes, I remember distinctly that Nebraska game, the broadcast crew pointing out, his stance and how he was throwing the football, and at times he had too wide of a base, and it caused him to be inaccurate. And that's the thing. It's you can do all that, throwing on the run and stuff, but where he struggled most was just dropping back in the pocket, planting and throwing the football.
There is a guy named Matt Holacek that's on the staff, and I actually talked to somebody at one of the summer camps, about a month ago. And he worked a lot. He was one of the guys that was working a lot with Kevin Sperry when he was here camping every weekend. And he has gotten a lot of, kind of praise for what he did at Oxford with the quarterback position and with Levy. And he obviously came over with Levy a year ago. I think that, just another year working with him as well should pay dividends at some point. And, Josh, we'll get into the recruiting stuff in a moment, but I didn't even realize he's from Lee Summit, Missouri. That's at least what he says on his Twitter page. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but I would put that out there.
Well, we'll get more into practice observations. We're going to talk some recruiting with Josh here at the beginning. But first, the reason that we know so much about practice is because we have Eddie, and he goes out there with his perfect vision. And if we're missing something, he's able to pick it up.
Yeah, if I'm watching, that's usually the number one key there. And when I am watching, it's because I have perfect vision, and it's from Enjoy Vision. It's because of Enjoy Vision, which is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City, and it's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing for me. What they're doing for the U40 listener is they're giving $400 off LASIK. So if you're interested in possibly exploring, going through an exploratory phase with Perfect Vision, go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter NJOY withme.com and use promo code U40. That is promo code U40 for $400 off. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
Josh, I got a thank you to Enjoy for being a big part of the show. We appreciate them. Josh, I will only imagine that this is your life a lot of the times, but I got a DM from somebody upset because wanting to know why it was that OU did not recruit Breon Ramsey Brooks, a 455-pound offensive lineman that's a freshman at TCU.
He went viral.
He's going viral this week. And there's a certain segment of OU fans that are like, why didn't OU recruit this guy? Just because he's 455 pounds. Like, that's not a bonus. Like, that's too big to play football. He's not going to be able to play college football at that weight.
Where do you get a jersey that big?
You're talking about losing 100 pounds and still being an enormous human being.
South Oak Cliff is where he went to high school.
If he can do that, he can be a really good football player. Like, he is abnormally athletic for a human being that size. Because I've seen him at camps.
Yep.
He's very talented. He's very good. He's a better athlete than you would think he is. But I mean, you're right. Like, and that's I talk about this all the time. Like, that's why I want to take. Yeah, that's why I want to take the guys that are 260 who are really good athletes, and I'm going to bet my training staff and Jerry Schmidt and everybody else can put the weight and strength on they're going to need, rather than trying to retrain a guy to eat healthy and take care of himself to a degree where he has to lose roughly 20% of his body to get to where I need him to be.
And that seems like a Sonny Dykes type move. Like, he's always kind of, buck trends and done things that other people don't do. Like, when they're at SMU and he made it all about transfer U and that stuff. He's gone a different path that a lot of people go. So I could see him being like, let's try it. Let's try and take the weight off of a guy that's clearly athletic.
Well, and Florida had the guy last year that played a lot of football for them that was 420 pounds or something like that. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, some of it is these guys are just getting bigger. Like, I mean, and there's a point to that where, like, you not only are you endangering yourself, but, like, how can I count on you in a day and age, especially like TCU, they're going to run up tempo. They may run 90 plays in a game. Do I really think that guy is going to hold up for 90 snaps? No way. And so I'm like, I don't know. I'm a little leery of that. But again, if he can do the work, it's not crazy. That guy is a good football player. He's not just like, he's a viral sensation. He is legitimately a good football player, helped South Oak Cliff to 2 straight state titles, and, was a big part of both of those. So he's a good player, but at 455 pounds, like, I was hoping he would show up at TCU at like 385. And you're like, okay, they're now,
he's clearly
50
gained,
pounds
he's gained quite a bit of weight since you've seen him last, right? I mean,
yes.
I remember when he was at that Rivals camp and the video went viral from that. He actually looked like a guy that was just, some good working out and healthy eating away from being, 350 pounds.
Yeah, I mean, he's I went and looked, and he's listed at 400, which I have to assume is what he came in at that camp, that Dallas camp, I guess, would have been spring of, 22? Is that right?
I think so.
Am I doing that right? Yeah. So, I mean, now he's another 50 pounds bigger than that, and he was already considerably overweight then. I mean, it's not like a shaming thing. Like, these guys are big, and some don't carry. Guys, we watched Orlando Brown, who is not a pretty-looking athlete, but is he's an outstanding football player. Like, and I stopped from dropping the F-bomb. I saved Carey that edit. But right. He is unbelievably good. So it's not like you have to be a bodybuilder to be an offensive lineman, but you have to have some level of conditioning. And you'll never convince me at 450 pounds you're at the conditioning level you need to be at.
Well, guys, we sat there and watched Walter Rouse go up against Kenai Walker after Monday's practice, like just trying to get a speed guy to rush around his side so he could work on his footwork and getting outside. Like, but you look at Walter Rouse and he gives me kind of some shades of Orlando Brown, just how massive he is as a person. And, like, he could easily be a guy that weighed 400 if he, didn't take care of himself.
He is a big guy. Like, Walter Rouse is a big guy as much as Rondell Bothroyd's a big guy. Like, it is noticeably different. And just being out there at practice, the difference in size that they have on the offensive line as well as the defensive line. The defensive line's night and day, and I know that's something that George and I talked about on one of the YouTube shows. Just it's night and day different, and how that comes together obviously is going to be very, very interesting.
Well, Josh, back to recruiting for a sec, and we'll get back into Walter Rouse and what we saw at practice, but you talked to a commit this week that is an offensive lineman that basically was kind of pointing that out, like, OU has a lot of huge dudes, and I kind of know my place.
I love that quote from Josh Iasosa, the guy who committed on, I believe it was Sunday, from Edmond Santa Fe. And, I was talking to him because he's a kid that I've known for a while, but he was never really on OU's radar until this summer. I mean, like, they were aware of him, but he wasn't a guy that I had to take seriously. So, like, we tweet, we DM'd and stuff like that, but it was never like we really had a sit down conversation. So I'm talking to him, before he makes his announcement, and we're kind of just doing the commitment story. And I said, has Bill laid it out? Has he told you where he's going to play? And he goes, no, they haven't. But he goes, man, their tackles are 6'9" and 6'7". I'm gonna play guard. Like, I mean, he was just so, like, matter of fact. Like, and most guys, I hear guys all the time that are like 6'3", like, oh, I think I got a shot at tackle. Like, I like a kid like that, and especially to work with Bill Bedenbaugh that is so honest about, like, who he is, what his strengths are. Because I also asked him about the whole situation, some of the guys in state that, through the years, not just this year, that have taken exception to not being offered early. And he said, I wasn't any good as a freshman or an eighth grader. I didn't even start playing ball till my sophomore year. Like, this offer happened, if it was going to happen, it happened when it should have. Like, he was very matter of fact about that. And I was like, wow, that's just unique. And I think that sort of realistic perspective is a good fit for Bill. Like, that's the kind of guy he can work with, and they'll find some common ground. And the thing to remember, I know a lot of people look at his offer list and kind of try to write him off. Oklahoma could have offered several other guys in state, and notably a guy from Muskogee, Wesley Harvey, who is that kind of tackle that we're talking about. Wesley Harvey's like 6'8", 260. And I think he's got a ton of potential, but Bill, has been honest with Josh that he thinks he's the number one offensive lineman in the state. And Wesley Harvey just committed to TCU. So, like, he had good offers. He had plenty of opportunities. And OU preferred to go after Josh Iasosa. So I think you have to look at that and kind of weigh that and say, do I really doubt Bill Bedenbaugh's ability to evaluate offensive linemen? We can talk and we can have that conversation about, does he recruit the 5-star as well as some other guys do? I don't think he does. Like, I think we can all acknowledge that. At the same time, you can't find many guys who do a better job evaluating and developing offensive linemen than Bill Bedenbaugh. So I think there's reason for optimism here. I know I'm a big stars matter guy, so I'm not trying to argue both sides of the fence here, but I think in Bill's case, he's earned enough benefit of the doubt to say, if he says this kid can play, I'm going to listen.
Bill Bedenbaugh scared me this week. Well, it was Friday. I don't know if you guys were over there by offensive line drills. But
he always scares me.
He was said and I say I say that when I first started covering the beat, Jonathan Hayes and Mark Mangino were out there, and they never stopped yelling. I mean, but I don't know, with Bill, it penetrates into my bones when he starts getting after people.
That's what she said.
It's like I just don't. I had to leave. I mean, it was too much. You have to be a special person to play for Bill Bedenbaugh.
It was very erotic, I thought, because, and honestly, some of those offensive linemen should be thanking us that we were there, because if we weren't there, you could tell he was holding back a little bit. Like he was going hand over the mouth a couple times, and you could tell that what was being said under that hand was probably not the most encouraging.
Yes,
he was encouraging in his own way. It is in Bill Bedenbaugh's way. But, it was pretty good to stand over there and watch the offensive linemen get after it. And that was a group that Dylan Gabriel brought up today. Now, you're probably out there listening and saying, kind of rolling your eyes thinking, what else is he going to say at this time of the year? But, I think from left to right, it seems like it's pretty locked in right now.
Is there a guy on that offensive line that won't get drafted other than McCade Matwire?
I think Raheem's going to need to have a really good year, and I'm still not completely sold that Troy Everett doesn't beat him out.
Troy Everett's not a big guy.
He's not, but he seems like he's just kind of one of those Bill Bedenbaugh type guys that he gets it. He did really well at Appalachian State.
Because you have to be willing to take that. I mean, if you're a prima donna, you're going to quit really fast.
Yeah. It certainly is a different style of coaching. He's in your face, pretty rough, pretty gruff.
But the people that get it love it. Like, you put out that GIF of, was it Jacob Sexton running a rep? And Bill Bedenbaugh immediately drops his head down like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And I'm getting texts from Gabe Eichert. He's like, I've watched this GIF 500 times. Like, he loves it. Like, the guys that went through it, enjoy watching the guys go through it now because they got out on the other side.
And speaking of it, Tower, it'll be interesting to see if Jake Taylor pushes him and how much he pushes them here through the early portion of camp over there at the right guard. But the tackles seem like they're pretty locked right now with Walter Rouse over on the left side, and then obviously Tyler Guyton on the right. And I think that they're going to have some depth issues early, especially to see how quickly Caden Green can come along. But
to see Jacob Sexton out there though, actually going through things.
Yeah, it's a positive.
Yeah, that's 100%. Huge. But
I thought it would, and we need to get back to recruiting. I know, but just even the guys like Jacob Lacey and Robert Spears Jennings, they're doing so much even with those blue jerseys on. They're running full speed. When they're ready to go, they're gonna be ready to go. There's not gonna be a lot of rust with
maybe
those
a little bit different than Jake in that it were, I guess technically it's an upper body thing with Jacob Lacey and the blood clot. But, with Robert, I mean, he can do basically everything. He just can't hit.
Right. So, anyway, back to recruiting. Sorry, Josh, we're tangenting quite a bit today. They get the commitment. Say the kid's last name again. Iasosa?
Iasosa.
Okay.
And to be fair, I usually ask with him. For some reason I didn't, but I assume that's correct.
Okay. But outside of that, I mean, little bit of activity here and there. I mean, is realignment, is that putting anything in the recruiting world kind of up in the air?
Not that I've heard yet. Now, obviously these things, the
USC lost a long time
slow.
Commitment this morning.
Yeah. That board's getting a little shaky after all that we read from the Taylor Tatum situation. That the song has changed a lot for a lot of USC people. That class, the wheels are starting to come off a little bit. Now, they'll be fine. It's not like that. They're, people can say whatever they want. Riley is at least good recruiter, so it'll be
of offensive
fine.
talent.
Yeah, exactly. For what he needs to get, it's like we always saw when they in a class where there wasn't that elite 5-star quarterback that Lincoln Riley was bringing in. They kind of struggled to surround that with enough talent. But in those years, the Rattler year, Caleb Williams year, you go down the list, there were he was able to build good classes around those guys because everybody wants to play with those guys. So
Lincoln Riley trending on Twitter, by the way, right now.
Oh, interesting.
Get divorced?
But
I thought you were friends now.
We are. That's why I would just be so surprised if they did get divorced. I'd hope not. I wish my best for Caitlin and the girls.
But no, I don't think you've seen a lot play out. But there are some interesting things that suddenly happen, like when, for example, with Stanford left out, they've got a couple of pretty interesting commitments, and a lot of people are kind of like, well, does Oklahoma or whoever start to look around? Like, they have Benedict Yume, a kid from actually from Ontario in Canada, that's like a top 50 player in the On3 rankings. Like, he is an outstanding talent. And they've got Elijah Brown, the quarterback from Mater Dei that started there since he was a freshman. I saw him when I was covering Relique Brown, several years ago now. So they are building a nice class, and you're kind of like, well, what does this do to that? Where does this leave everything? And so I don't think you're going to see an immediate thing, because the kids are just like all of us. Like, they don't know yet how this is all going to play. Because, a week ago, Oregon and Washington were in the Pac-12, and the Big Ten didn't want them, and then circumstances changed. So I think kids are watching that stuff, but I think there is a little just kind of, let's see where this goes before anyone kind of jumps too quick and makes a move. But it wouldn't shock me at all if on signing day you saw some of these guys that are headed to places like Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, Washington State, start looking around at maybe programs that 2 years ago would not have been considered on their level.
All right, Josh, we'll cut to the chase here. I'm sure this is the only thing that people want to know about. It's what you wrote about this morning up on Soonerscoop.com. The 3 5-stars that are making decisions over the next month. Obviously, you have Williams Nwaneri coming up next week, August 14th. David Stone on August 26th, and then a guy that I think a lot of people didn't really. You just don't give Oklahoma much of a chance with the Louisiana guy, but Dominic McKinley is starting to become rather interesting for Oklahoma.
Depending on who you talk to, there are people that will tell you OU feels better about McKinley than they do Nwaneri. And that's not to say that they don't feel good about Nwaneri. It's just there are people that think the relationship that is there between his mother and the coaching staff and from everything I have learned about his mom, who I am told is the focal point of this decision. She is the person you have to win in this recruitment. She seems like a near ideal fit for Todd Bates. Like, just absolutely the mom. She's very faith driven. She's going to talk about academics. She wants to know what your graduation rates are, what your GPA is. Like, in a lot of ways, it's a stereotypical mother, but just has that, and at the same time, down home Southern mom that Todd Bates, he's an Alabama guy. She's from Louisiana. Like, there's plenty of connection there that makes a lot of sense. So I think Oklahoma's making a pretty serious run here. Now, I will say, since writing that story, I have heard Ohio State is a little more real in this than some people think. I don't believe he'll go that far from home based on some other conversations, but I'm just told you can't kind of write them off. And obviously with Larry Johnson, you never want to overlook Ohio State. They're just a machine. Now, the other two, David Stone, I'm not going to waste a ton of time. I still feel really good about David Stone. I haven't heard anything to change my opinion. I've stuck with that for 18 months now. I don't really have any reason to change it. I think Oklahoma's in good shape, and I think if anything, OU's probably wishing he would do it now, and maybe that helps with Williams Nwaneri or Dominic McKinley or whatever. But with McKinley looking to announce on September 1st, maybe David Stone on August 26th. If they close that deal, maybe that helps, to say, hey, you're not going to have to be the guy at defensive tackle. We've got two, you can be part of two big-time guys for us here. So we'll see. But obviously the guy that everybody is focused on right now, Williams Nwaneri, the On3 Industries #1 player in the country. I have rarely been this kind of confused. I don't know another way to say it. Like, because the second that I hear something and I'm like, okay, I think it's going to be Oklahoma, I'll hear something else and you're like, I can't write off Missouri. Like, it's really interesting. And I know, Eddie, you and I have had some conversations. it still sounds like Oklahoma is doing everything it can to throw the kitchen sink as far as NIL. Like, they are doing everything they are comfortable doing. Now, again, I want to be really clear. I don't think Brent Venables, for any player, is going to do something that he feels compromises his locker room. Like, he believes in that. And OU's in on enough good players. I keep saying this. If OU loses Williams-Neri, that's a tough beat. Obviously, that stinks, especially if you lose it to what we think they're, if he goes to Missouri, we know why they lost him, and that's a tough loss. It always is. But if you go get Nigel Smith and Danny Okoye, okay. Like, I don't think Williams-Neri is going to be the difference in you getting where you want to go. Obviously, you want to have all the great players you can have, but that defensive line class with David Stone, Okoye, Smith, Wyatt Gilmore, Jaden Jackson, I mean, that's a really good defensive line class. It just didn't get the cherry on top you were looking for. But if you can find a way to get Winery or McKinley, then you really have done something pretty special. All three, that's stratospheric. Like, I can't. I know I did something with Josh Newberg a lot of people saw. I can't get my head there. The math I'm like, I can't see any way that they hit the jackpot on all three of those guys. So we'll see. Again, if I'm picking today, I stick with my Oklahoma pick on Williams-Neri. I stick with my Oklahoma pick on David Stone. I think with McKinley, I would lean just a little bit to Texas. I know there's a lot of confidence down there. I want to talk to some more people about it. I don't think the race is run by any stretch of the imagination. But again, the fact that Oklahoma is in all three of these chases probably is going to land one, and very possibly could. I think landing two, the best way to say this, landing two of those guys is more likely than landing none of those guys, if that makes anybody feel better. So we'll see where it goes. But I love the work they've done on the recruiting trail. The fact that Oklahoma's in these races just blows me away, considering what they have to sell as far as Oklahoma itself and their NFL production. They are doing an outstanding job connecting with these kids and convincing them, hey, it's going to be different going forward than it has been in the rearview mirror.
Josh, let's just say Winery commits to Missouri. Is that a recruitment that could still go all the way up to signing day, especially considering I think Missouri's over-under this year is 6.5, and is this third year under Drinkowitz maybe? I don't know. I mean, there's a chance that staff's not even around come December or January maybe. Is that something that to keep an eye on, is even if he commits to Missouri, that recruitment's still, I'm guessing, going all the way to signing day?
Yeah, I believe, he's going into his fifth season. I'm not Winery, Drinkowitz.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. Maybe that's right.
I think that's right.
I think that is.
Yeah. 2021. No, this is 4. This is 4.
Okay,
I'm sorry. Yeah. So anyway, I do. To me, if I'm an Oklahoma fan or an Oklahoma coach, more to the point, he picks Missouri, I'm okay with that. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I get that you want him to pick Oklahoma out of the hat, but at the same time, you get this situation where you still get all that time to work on him. You don't have to put on the full court press. Hey, Williams, we're here. We just want you to know everything, we put on the table. We still want you here. We're still working on you. Like, they can give that pitch and be kind of passive because they haven't sold their soul to land this commitment. And if things start going badly at Missouri, they have to work and work and work to try and keep that afloat, kind of like last year with Oklahoma. But the difference being Oklahoma is Oklahoma and Missouri is Missouri. And we all knew Brent Venables wasn't getting fired at the end of last year. Eli Drinkwitz, they go fire off 5-7. He's in trouble. I mean, that's going to be, 3 straight losing seasons. And, I mean, the best bowl they've accomplished, Armed Forces, maybe, Music City, kind of depending. And the Music City got vacated. They didn't play that bowl game. So, I mean, I think there would still be a possibility. But at the same time, if he's choosing that, he's making that choice for what we think he's making it for, I don't think that's going to go away with the new coaching staff. Whoever put that money forward is going to be so gung-ho and, hey, we're gonna get it for this guy, whoever the next guy at Missouri would be, that I don't think that money's going to evaporate or anything. So if that's what it's about, then there's nothing you can do. But if Oklahoma can get that number close enough, and they can convince him, hey, look, we just went 9-3 or 10-2. Oklahoma showed some real progress. Then maybe you can turn those tables a little bit. But again, those things are unlikely. They just are. So to me, if he doesn't pick Oklahoma the first go around, maybe you've got a 10% shot. I mean, you've got a chance. And the nice thing is he's not anyone you have to depend on as far as your numbers go. Like, you can continue to recruit him, but you don't have to rely like, okay, well, we either have to pick Williams and Airy or another defensive lineman. No, you just keep recruiting him and figure it out at the end.
Anything else that's brewing out there that worth keeping an eye on right now, Josh?
Well, I mean, we obviously Caden Durham, he's a couple days away. I mean, I know you mentioned earlier I'm about to go on vacation. Oklahoma's got two big decisions coming this week. Caden Durham, the running back from Duncanville, and Jaden Nickens, the wide receiver in the 2025 class from Oklahoma City Millwood. They're both set to announce, over the next couple days. Caden Durham on Thursday the 12th, and Jaden Nickens on Thursday the 10th, and Jaden Nickens on Saturday the 12th. So I think Oklahoma goes 1 for 2 there. I feel pretty good about where they are with Nickens. I've got a prediction in there, and then with Durham, you just keep hearing this. He's messing with people. He's trolling people. Like, even from like some folks around Oklahoma City that will tell you they have some affiliation. They're like, man, he's going to Oklahoma. Like, and they act so matter of fact about it. But literally nowhere else do you hear that. It sounds like it's LSU. Like, I don't know if it's some late stuff to kind of keep it interesting. But like I said last week, if this is a troll job, it's a hell of a good one. Like, I mean, I will own it. He got me, no problem. But I think it's going to be LSU. Jaden Nickens feels like a guy that I'm guessing kind of like we talked about last week, where Emmett Jones has already got 2 commitments in the class, can go to a receiver and say, hey, man, no pressure, but we've only got so many spots. If this is the move for you, this is what you want to do, we need you to let us know. We need you to get on board, or some other guy might beat you to the punch. And so that's my guess at how this is playing out, but we'll see. I mean, Jaden might want to pull a surprise and do something crazy. You just never know. And then, of course, like I said, I mean, you've got Williams and Airy in less than a week. Gus Cordova, the big 25 defensive lineman from Lake Travis and Austin. I don't think he has finalized his date. He kind of had one in mind, and now I think he's kind of thinking about doing something else. But I think Oklahoma has every reason to feel good there. But no, I mean, it should be a really good August for Oklahoma. I am expecting multiple big decisions, and if they can close in on a few of these guys, then I think you really start to see not only 24 start to climb in the rankings as they start getting some of these higher level commitments, but also 2025 really starting to lay a firm foundation to where guys like Kevin Sperry and Grayson Harrison and some of these guys, some of these guys that are already committing, they can start really going to work on 2025. And I guess in that class, the one guy I will say that I wouldn't go to sleep on right now is Nate Roberts, the Notre Dame commitment from Washington. I continue to hear stuff that Oklahoma has not given up that race, and that I'm not reporting anything. I'm not telling you anything's going to happen, but I don't know that there's a total lack of interest on his part. I guess I would say it that way.
I think there's obviously a draw. It certainly helps that he's been throwing a little bit with Kevin Sperry and some of the Carl Albert boys. I would imagine that is something that is on the back of everybody's mind as far as, kind of where his head's at going into the season. And I don't blame him. I mean, coming up to get work with Kevin Sperry before the season starts for Washington, probably a pretty good idea. As far as Jaden Nickens, Josh, I know that we talked about the 2025 class in state and how good and how talented that thing is. Starting off with Elijah Thomas and Jaden Nickens, getting them in a class already with Kevin Sperry. I mean, you talk about locking down the state of Oklahoma. And you could even throw Josh Asosha in there as well. Pretty damn good. I mean, they're doing exactly what they wanted to do as far as kind of making a statement inside the state.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, like, you look at where they are in the state. I mean, guys, we've talked about it with Kevin Sperry and his move in, and then the recent offer to who was it? No, there wasn't a recent offer. Sorry, just the Kevin Sperry move in. Oklahoma's made 9 offers in the state of Oklahoma, and I mean, already have a commitment from Kevin Sperry, already have one from Elijah Thomas. I think they're trending with Jaden Nickens, and CJ Nixon is a guy that he's just so quiet. He's never really, CJ and I talk a little bit, but he's not one of those guys that's at all the camps or is doing all the interviews. He just, he's a small town kid from Western Oklahoma, and he's just very calm and casual about how he's handling his recruitment. But the only place he ever seems to show up is Oklahoma. He was, he was out there today at camp. We saw him out there with his dad, and then, a couple months later, he's at the party at the Palace. So that's really the only stuff he's done other than basketball all summer. So, I like where OU is there. And, a guy like Marcus James at Carl Albert, OU continues to be in really good shape with him. And, we saw him this spring and summer, and he is a freaky talent once it all comes together. We could go on and on about the Carl Albert roster. And I will say, starting to put my schedule together, something for all the Oklahoma high school fans out there, there is going to be a preseason scrimmage involving Washington and Carl Albert. Nate Roberts, Cooper Alexander, that whole Carl Albert roster, they're all going to be on the same field. That should be a pretty cool thing to watch for anybody that wants to go see a lot of, just high-end talent in the state of Oklahoma.
I think Heritage Hall's going to be there that night as well, in Andy Bass.
Oh, that's correct. I think I knew that, but I had forgotten. And then the night before that, depending on what happens with Williams Nwaneri is going to announce on Monday he will be in the state of Oklahoma on Thursday. He will be up at Tulsa Union's
Union, yeah.
I
team
think
camp.
that those are both the same night, possibly. Are they both the 17th?
I think. I need to be sure about the Carl Albert one.
The Carl Albert one's the 17th. I know.
Okay, then I think they probably would be the same night then, because I'm almost certain Union almost always does theirs on Thursday night.
Yeah.
And
Union preview.
let me see.
Well, if he commits to OU, I'll drive down to Tulsa. I'll go talk.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the offer.
I'll go talk to him.
I want Coney Islander on the way back.
Oh my God, always the Coney Islander.
I was literally I could taste it the other day. It was like somebody posted a Coney picture. It wasn't from there. Man, I miss it. By the way,
that might be a top 10 most disgusting thing ever, too, by the way. Not Coney Islander. Coney Islander's great.
Yeah.
Getting it, and then the travel situation, it worries me.
Yeah, that's true, too. That's why you only have 4.
And eat them there.
Right.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what else I need to restock on? That's prime shrimp. 6 different varieties of shrimp for you to choose from. And right now, if you go to the website, primeshrimp.com, Prime shrimp.com, use that promo code U40, you get 25% off your first order of $50 or more. And like I said, 6 different varieties. You can get all 6. They're $10, $11 per. Get 25% off that to help you with the shipping on that. But they come to you frozen. You put them in the freezer. Decide whenever you want to eat them. You need a nice, you don't want to use the DoorDash and pay all the fees. You don't want to go out. You just want a nice restaurant quality meal at home. It's primeshrimp.com. Garlic herb butter shrimp, the New Orleans style barbecue shrimp. Get yourself some rice, some quinoa, some linguine, whatever is your pick of choice. Add it to the shrimp. The French Quarter Alfredo is fantastic. Lemon and cracked pepper. Go check them out. Look at all the varieties. See what you like. Pick all of your selections up to $50, then you'll get 25% off with that promo code U40. That's primeshrimp.com. Go check them out. Support them. They support the pod and have for a very long time. We appreciate them. All right, Josh, anything that you want to know about the current state of the football team at Oklahoma? Any youngsters that you're really curious how they're looking right now?
Well, I have to say I love all the Jaquez Petaway talk.
Yeah.
That's
I
real.
Love players are players are
is
talking him up too.
A ton bigger than I was expecting.
Yes.
He again, man. If they can, and it's one of those deals where I think I talked about this in the roundtable we did, or maybe something else. I can't remember. But guys with speed like that, you can find a way to use those guys. Like, they may not be able to grasp the full offense and do everything you want them to do, but like, hey, man, 10 times a game, we just want you to run vertical. Like, just stretch. And
well, you know,
even
and Jalil
if
Farouk yesterday talking to him, I mean, that's what he was talking about, is the speed that they brought into the room. He's talking about Brennan Thompson, too, how much speed he brings to the offense. Like, you can tell that's something that, with Petaway, like, you have some speed, you're going to find your way on the field.
I mean, Josh, that's something that they did with Gavin Freeman a year ago and putting different packages together to get him on the field somehow, some way.
Yeah, that is, like I said, I think Oklahoma needed him to come in and be as good as they were hoping he would be, and it sure sounds like he's doing the things he needs to do. The other guy, and we heard more about him, I think, from the staff in the spring, and I almost wonder if they accept who he is now. I keep hearing Josiah Wagner's name come up a lot.
Yes.
Like he is a guy that's really just impressing people with just his understanding. He's just a smart football player.
Woody Washington raved about him today. I don't know if you saw his quote about, he called him a pit bull, and I think that's the perfect description for him. And he put on 20-some pounds in the offseason. He's a guy that, everyone's talking about Gentry, and us included, but I think Wagner is pushing for a role there.
Guys, that would be the thing I would ask. How long has it been since Oklahoma's had this many guys in their secondary that they had any reason to feel this good about? Like that room, safeties and corners, has flipped over dramatically in a year and a half.
Well, just think about the 4 safeties that we think are the too deep right now. You're talking about Reggie Pearson. You're talking about Billy Bowman. You're talking about Key Lawrence. You're talking about Peyton Bowen. That's a solid start. And we talked to Dave McCulloch today. He is very good sized.
Big frame, great frame. And we didn't even mention Robert Spears-Jennings, who's
absolutely
not able to go fully through practice yet. That's a guy that looks like he can be a contributor. So, that safety spot, I think that's a group that maybe we're not talking enough about. And I don't, maybe we are, but people outside the program aren't. Like, I think that they have the potential to be one of the better groups in the Big 12 at safety.
It's one of those things where, we go out there and see those guys, and it's almost like you're questioning yourself, like, is this really as good as I think it is? Like, is this being fixed faster than I expected? And we don't know, because we got to see it on the field. And, everybody got drunk after the Nebraska win last year, and then it all went to shit, and like, there's still a possibility that could happen. By the way, when Josh comes back from vacation, we'll do the Doom Pod before. I know we said it'd be this week, but then we forgot about the vacation stuff. But, like, I don't know, guys. It's like I get more and more impressed every time they invite us out there just to look at the type of players that are in this program.
Here's the difference, and because I have the same questions of, like, are we drinking too much of the Kool-Aid? But you cannot convince me that going from Justin Broyles and Jeffrey Johnson to a Peyton Bowen or a Reggie Pearson and a Dejon Terry and a bigger Jonah Laulu is not just a massive upgrade. Like, maybe
and a PJ Adebawore sitting there as a young guy.
That's where I'm like, they have to.
And a Bothroyd.
It has to be better.
We've all been enamored with Bothroyd.
I think Bothroyd is going to be a really, really good football player for this team.
What would you say are the chances that your starting defensive ends come bowl time are Bothroyd and Adebawore?
I could see it.
I would push back just for the fact that our Mason Thomas, it sounds like, is having a pretty good camp so far. He was in a boot today. We saw it. You can't act like it wasn't out there, but I don't think that's anything.
We weren't looking. We weren't. He
literally walked right by us
by the interview session. I think that he's a guy that could end up having a say. I think that Trace Ford's going to end up having a say. Maybe not a starter though, Josh. So I think that
he's going to play.
I would buy into the idea that those could be your starting defensive ends before it's all said and done.
Well, and Bothroyd talked about Adebawore today and said that he just is a lot more comfortable than where he was in the spring in terms of learning the defense. And so, but man, you can pick him out. Like, again, we weren't watching practice, but if we were, you can see him from a long distance away, and it's like, oh, that's PJ Adebawore. Like, he's
just not there yet. You can see the frame is there. Like, he has gotten a little bit bigger, but like, you see an NFL player there someday. Like,
100%.
It's just not there yet. He's just a kid.
Like, I watched a lot of Nick Bonito last year in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
He's so much bigger than Nick Bonito. Yeah. And, like, Nick Bonito's playing in the NFL. It was a great player to OU. Like, he is, I don't know, man. He's just a different cat. And
like, he doesn't look like Okoronkwo. He doesn't look like Nick Bonito.
PJ doesn't look like anybody that they have had.
You have to compare him to an NFL guy, like before he lost the fingers, like a Jason Pierre-Paul or somebody like that.
Now, I will say Reggie Grimes also looks great out there, and he's not been a good player.
He has an NFL body, and he doesn't play like an NFL player.
Maybe PJ's going to – Josh would answer that better than I could, but, like, maybe that happens. I don't know. But
I'm somewhat very excited to see what they do inside on the defensive line because you see all those bodies that they have there. They have options. It's just about production. And, if Isaiah Coe can take a step, if DJ Terry can take a step, if, I don't know where Jordan Kelly's going to fit into the mix. Jacob Lacey obviously is going to be somebody that I think once he gets cleared is going to be
he's such a big
body
dude too.
Very big. Like it's night and day different from what they were from last year to this year. And I think that, it's going to make everybody's life so much easier if you can just get solid play on the defensive line. They don't need to be All-Americans. They can just be second team All Big 12 type guys.
Well, here's a perfect example. They just need they need a couple of Isaiah Thomases. They just need guys that can, stay on a team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, they haven't had that in the last, since Isaiah. Like, they didn't have like that last year. But, like, you put Paya in the game, you at least got to run around that guy. Like, that's a little bit of an improvement over what they had a year ago because, last year, all teams had to do was run around the edge, and they couldn't hold the edge.
Yeah, they couldn't hold anything.
Yeah.
And, the cheetah thing is going to come together. I know Bob wrote about it. We did some stuff on the YouTube show about it, George. It's starting to maybe come into a little bit more clearer picture of what they want to do. I still think like Samuel Omosigo looks like somebody that can play immediately. I don't know if they're going to throw everything at him, but I think that he could maybe be a contributor. But more so, the Justin Harrington hype continues to build from what he was during the spring, which was it was growing. It was like, okay, this is for real. And then obviously Deshaun McCulloch is going to be a guy that, they're going to use, I think, in a variety of ways because he is so versatile in what they can do. But, Justin Harrington is very, very interesting going into the season.
I think he's going to start. I know there's a lot of people that want McCulloch to start. I think it's going to be Justin Harrington at that cheetah spot. I think McCulloch's going to play. I think it's going to be a situational thing. Obviously Harrington is probably a little bit better in coverage. Eddie, you and I talked about that a little bit. Obviously he's played safety before, so I think that you'll see him in maybe passing situations, and McCulloch comes in and maybe rushes. He was really good at that at Indiana. It's gonna be really interesting to see what they do at Cheetah because even Brent mentioned the four guys that he mentioned was Reggie Pearson, Peyton Bowen, Justin Harrington, and Deshaun McCulloch. Those are all four very different types of players working at that Cheetah spot. So
I'll give you a young guy that I like to be an established starter by the end of the season more than PJ. And that's Peyton Bowen. I just think he's a
very
guy,
good chance.
I just think he's a guy that is another one of these guys that just makes plays. Like, last year, when I watch practice, what I find myself saying is I see more guys out there on the field that I'm like, why can't he play? Like, what, he looks really good. Like, and it's like last year there was a couple of guys. Like, there was like Kenai Walker. We were like, wow, he looks really long and lean, and I wonder if he can play. Now you see dozens of those types. Even guys like Connor Neer.
Yeah. And, that's a position that I think we have talked about quite a bit as the linebacker position opposite of Danny Stutzman. And Jaron Kanek, it continues to feel like he's coming on more and more.
After talking to Kanek the other day, and George was there too, like, I'm like, okay, this guy gets it. Like, he's ready to take over a starting role.
And even with all of the buzz surrounding Connor Neer, we talked about Jaron Kanek, Kobe McKenzie's going to play a lot of football for this team.
He might be the best looking linebacker they have. Now, again, what does that look like when it actually comes to game time? But I think Jaron Kanek's going to start at that spot. Just talking to him after practice the other day, you can tell he has a better grasp of what they're asking him to do, where last year it was very obvious he didn't know what he was doing. And I think none of us have ever questioned his athletic or physical abilities. So he has that down. I just think it's his job to lose at this point. And I would bet that and again, I think they'll rotate guys in and out there, but I think he'll be the day one starter there.
You know what else I took of that conversation from him is he and Danny Stutzman and Brent Venables have really been through it together.
Yeah.
And they've stayed. It's made them closer. Like, that is that's just a combination, I think, that is going to be kind of the heartbeat of that defense.
I think they spend a lot of time together in the offseason. It sounds like maybe Brent had some one-on-one sessions with those guys in terms of watching film and looking at things together. But, yeah, I think that him and Brent and Danny has really taken Jaren under his wing. I want to say they might even be, like, living together possibly. But, I think that those three guys obviously have a very, very tight relationship, and I think that they obviously have a very close relationship with Brent.
Speaking of people that live with Danny Stutzman, I mean, we're talking about the defensive line, and I still think that, like, Kelvin Gilliam, how does he fit into the situation?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the defensive line is going to be really interesting because there's like 8 guys, and I know that Todd Bates said that they want to play 6 up front. We haven't even talked about Devon Sears. I think he's another guy that they brought in from Texas State. I heard he's one of the stronger guys on the team. I think that he could get some playing time. Kelvin Gilliam looks great out there. Grayson Holton, another guy that had a huge summer. So I think all those guys are people that could maybe earn rotating roles. I do think, though, it's going to be Dejon Terry, Isaiah Coe, Jordan Kelly. Those are going to be kind of your guys up front to start, I think. They're just so much bigger up there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at comparing Dejon Terry to Perrion Winfrey. Did you know Dejon Terry's like 30 pounds heavier and like 2 inches taller than Perrion Winfrey?
I mean, Perrion was not a huge guy. He was just very athletic. And explosive.
But I remember when Perrion played, it was like, man, they haven't had a guy like that size in a while, other than maybe Neville Gallimore. But to say that they have several guys that are bigger than Perrion is
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
it's just different.
All right, Josh, I know we got to get you out of here. Enjoy the vacation, which everybody knows. Josh goes on vacation. That means a lot of commitments. So pressure's on. Pressure's on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's there might be a few commitment stories written, so that's out there for people. So anyway, guys, enjoyed it, and enjoy all the practice stuff. Again, anybody that's not subscribed to YouTube, get over there and do that.
Just youtube.com/SoonerScoop. Really easy to get there. Hit that subscribe, like button. We're growing really, really fast again, so we'll keep putting more content out the more you guys subscribe and watch. So do it. All right,
Carey
Josh
has worked out a promo over there, so we got all kinds of good stuff.
Josh, yes, we do have a promo just for YouTube watchers, so you got to go watch to find it out. Josh, enjoy the vacation, well-deserved, and look forward to you returning and getting this football thing going.
Yeah, I return on Williams-Maneri Day, so we'll see. I should just dive right into the fire.
All right, Josh, enjoy it, man.
Later, fellas.
All right, folks, don't forget about Dead Soxy. They are the new standard in socks, according to GQ. Go check them out, deadsoxy.com. Very exciting as they have the new crimson colorways where you got to stock up for the season. It's going to be here before you know it. We're going through preseason practices right now, and I'm telling you, we're going to be sitting in that press box in the first game. It's going to fly by. So might as well get your new Dead Soxies in. Use that promo code SCOOP. You'll get 25% off your entire order, even your sell items, and collections like the Crimson Colorway collections. All new packs. And don't forget the no-shows, lifesavers right now this time of year. Even though our weather's cooled down a little bit, it just makes it better to wear those things with some nice, maybe some Cole Hunt slip-ons or something like that, which is what I wear them with. But love having those around. Get more and more. I can never have enough. So use that promo code. Get yourself some more. 25% off. Use the promo code SCOOP. Your entire order. DeadSoxy.com. Go check them out right now. And as always, stay Soxy. All right. Well, Josh is off to vacay, and we've still got the spring football or spring. I can't get out of that mode. Fall camp to cover. We were out today, or you guys were out today. We'll be back out on Monday and Tuesday of next week. So every Monday and Tuesday, I think we have one more viewing session scheduled at this point. 2 more?
I think 2 more.
Is it 2 more?
Yeah,
okay.
I think 2 more. I think we're getting 4, and it's going to be on every Monday, basically, from here on out until school starts.
But every time we go out, we learn a little bit more. And I think, we've talked a lot about the size, especially on the defensive line. And, the linebackers, we talked a little bit about that, but I'll tell you what, the running back room, just such a varied group of guys in what they're able to do. And I really get the sense that Javonte Barnes has kind of taken over the mantle in that room of saying, I want to be that guy. Like, talking to him the other day, you saw a lot of maturity from him. He wouldn't duck any questions that were asked, and you could tell just a guy that genuinely wants to get better, wants to prove to people that he's a better running back than he was as a freshman.
Yeah, no, I think the expectations are really high for him, and I said it on the YouTube video, but his poise in front of the media I thought was impressive. And I hadn't talked to him yet, and I know that, Eddie, you were saying last year he was a little bit more quiet, a little bit more like a freshman, I guess, at times.
Yeah, I think there were just moments where he was almost more guarded about what he wanted to say or what he, how he did the interview, just because he was a freshman. He didn't want to be put on blast everywhere if he said the wrong thing.
Right.
And I think that, he's very more comfortable now. It's a situation that this is kind of, in a way, his room outside of Marcus Major, because he's done, second most, I guess first most on the field, but by class he would be behind Marcus. But at the same time, I do think that he feels very comfortable. He's going to be the number one running back on this team, I think, if everything goes as planned. And it's kind of exciting when you look at what he was able to do a year ago. 116 rushes for 519 yards, averaged 4.5 a carry, 5 touchdowns. Flashed certainly at the end of the season when he was getting more opportunity. And obviously it was in the bowl game where he kind of burst onto the scene, if you will, with alongside Gavin Sawchuk. So even he mentioned yesterday that, they kind of have a little thunder and lightning, if you will, type thing going on. And it's going to be exciting to see how this whole thing comes together. That room is drastically different than what it was even, a year ago with Eric Gray. So it's a positive for DeMarco Murray. And, it's kind of one of those things that if they're able to run the ball, and they were able to run the ball a year ago, even with Eric Gray, I think that Javonte Barnes could end up being a really, really good player.
Do you think they could have 2 1,000-yard rushers on this team?
No.
I think Lebby is committed enough to the run where it could happen.
If they are, I think it's a major positive, right?
Last time they did that was 2019, and it was Jalen Hurts and Kennedy Brooks, I believe.
It would have been Kennedy, yeah.
Yep, Jalen Hurts and Kennedy Brooks. And they did it in 2018 as well with
Kyler.
Yeah, but no, it was
Did Mixon and Pirine do
yeah, it was Kyler and Kennedy Brooks, but then Trey Sermon, they almost had 3 1,000-yard rushers in 2018. Trey Sermon ran for 947 yards. So I mean, I don't know. I think they could do it. I think they're going to run the ball more than they did last year, and that's saying something because they led the Big 12 in rushing offense. But I think they have more. Like, I don't think it's going to be a situation where Eric Gray was relied on so much last year. I don't think they're going to run one guy as much as they ran Eric. I think that they're going to maybe have a little bit more of a rotation there.
Sure. And does that mean that Caleb Hicks is going to get some carries?
He looks great.
Does Tawee Walker get some carries?
Yeah.
In short yardage?
And that's why I don't think they'll have.
And then Marcus Major's just the forgotten guy because he hasn't been able to stay healthy. He hasn't been able to stay on the field.
Right. And that's why I don't think they'll have 2 1,000-yard rushers. But you could look up and they have 2 800-yard rushers, and then maybe a couple guys with 400 or something like that. I don't know. I feel really good about the running back room.
The last time that we saw Gavin Sawchuk, and it's going to be the play that everybody looks back at, that Cheese Bowl that kind of turned the momentum of the game, the fumble. And you just hope that that's not something that is revisited. And surely it was his first game. It was his first true playing experience at Oklahoma in the bowl game. But at the same time, it is something that in the back of your mind, you need to see him carry the ball a couple times before you go, okay, that was maybe just a one-off.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect from Gavin, because he did look really good in the bowl game, but that's one game, whereas we have such a bigger sample size of Javonte and what he's able to do and do some different things. I think Gavin's going to be a really good player. I don't know. I
think Barnes, he'll really benefit from a change-up back because, he's so physical. It's a little bit like, when Trey Sermon came in, for Kennedy Brooks. It was just a change-up, and it took the defense a little bit to adjust. So I think Sawchuk could be that guy that, is a little bit more of a speed back, gets through the hole quickly, kind of runs skinny through the trash and all that. There's going to be somebody to develop. And, I like what I saw in the spring from the young guys, too. I think some of those guys are enough of a change-up from Barnes that I think it'll be successful.
Dalen Smothers is the one guy that we just don't know a whole lot about. And I asked DeMarco Murray at Media Day 2 weeks ago. He's basically coming into a year where he didn't play as a senior. It's going to take some time for the rust to wear off. But at the same time, I do think that it's just another tool that they have back there at the running back position. And that's a good problem to have, is trying to figure out who's going to get the carries, not who. Or who's going to show up. And
I think we're going to look up at the end of the season, and one of those two running backs, either Hicks or Smothers, is going to be playing a little bit. And maybe it's not a huge role, but I think that they're going to get some run. And some of that's, the reality is one of these running backs is probably going to get hurt. Barnes, Sawchuk, Major, like that just happens at that position. Guys get banged up. I mean, Marcus Major can tell you all about that. So I think that there's a chance that one of those freshmen gets thrown into the fire a little bit this year. But I'm not worried about running back.
No, I'm really not. And it's almost kind of one of those things, just get everything figured out up front. And if they're just halfway good, and they were, I think, probably better than people want to remember a year ago, they need to be able to run the ball. I think that's one thing that Jeff Levy would tell you from the get-go. They have to be able to run the ball, and they have to be able to pick up short yardage situations, and they weren't able to do that a year ago.
I think the one position just early that makes you wonder, and we've known, but you see Austin Stogner out there. He's not an explosive guy. Even when he first got here, we were enamored with the size, but we always said, he's going to have to develop a little bit. He's going to have to find some quickness. He's going to have to get and work with, the strength team and kind of be a little bit better. But I haven't really seen that leap from him.
Well, and that was something that Dylan Gabriel talked about on Tuesday at the post-practice interview session was, he maybe will make up for some things that he doesn't give athletically, maybe just by being somebody that has played a ton of football. And obviously going to the SEC, you would have to think that he's picked up a little bit of knowledge as far as, finding places where he can just use his body to get in zones and take the ball away. And Brent talked about him making the play on Friday in the end zone. And, he did that at Oklahoma. He did that in Stillwater. That was one of the, kind of memorable plays, and that almost comeback that Caleb Williams engineered was finding a way to just make plays. But at the same time, he needs help.
Don't you think, one of the reasons he went to South Carolina is because Spencer Rattler used him as, kind of an outlet, a little bit of an emergency toss guy. But, yeah, that's one thing Dylan Gabriel has not developed since he's been here, which is that safety net. I think it's kind of been Drake Stoops at times. But throwing the ball down the field as much as he does to Marvin Mims, he's concentrated more. When we talk so much, George, in the preseason now about third and fourth down, that's where I think they make that jump to become better. Is if he and Austin Stogner can get that connection, or he and Gavin Freeman or Drake Stoops or Jalil Farouk, whoever, to know he can rely on a guy being in the right place at the right time to let that ball go on third and fourth down.
Well, I think the thing with Austin is I think they're going to have him probably run more of those, 5-10 yard outs and just be a big body, and that's going to help them in the red zone, right? If you can have somebody that size down there that can go up and get a jump ball, whereas he's not going to be a Mark Andrews where he takes one 60 yards to the house.
No.
That's not going to happen.
The defense.
Who can that be? I don't know. I think Cade McIntyre looks really good out there. I think that
we should talk. He really does. He has surprised me. Going through photos the other day, he is not far off. He's bigger than a lot of young tight ends.
Well, and I think that's the thing, though. And we went up and saw him up in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Physically, just look at his dad. They work out. There's no doubt about that. I think that for him, it's just about catching up to the game speed. And from the level of high school football that he was playing up in Nebraska to, just out there at practice, his head has to be spinning a little bit.
But you go through, all the tight ends that Oklahoma has, like you said, Mark Andrews is a special beast. He proves that in the NFL.
Sure.
But, like a Grant Calcaterra, he certainly looks that part a little bit physically.
Well, he's 32 pounds lighter than Stogner. Stogner's 255 pounds.
Stogner's a big boy.
Yeah, McIntyre's 223. So I don't know. I think he's going to play because they don't have anybody else.
Yeah.
Right. Blake Smith, I think, is probably going to get some run. Obviously,
he's fallen in love with Mr. I can't even
Fanui.
Yeah,
I don't know
the tight end.
He just looks big and athletic.
Always making plays. That's the thing.
Again, they just don't have bodies there, so I think they're going to throw some of these guys out there that we've I mean, Llewellyn, what's he look like? No idea.
Hampton Frade, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's another guy.
And as we said, they want to have a tight end presence with Devon Mitchell committed. They don't want him to get cold feet because they're not using the tight end this year.
Well, look how much they used Braden Willis last year. I mean, he was some of that safety net at times last year, and so
100%.
I think they have to find that guy. And again, I think Austin is a nice player, but they have to find somebody that can maybe be an X factor when a Dimitri Flowers type, or again, Mark Andrews is a different level, but even Grant Calcaterra, one of those guys that can split out and make a big play.
But here's the thing with Stogner is like they need to use him like Iowa State used their tight ends. Like just a guy that they know he's going to be in traffic, but you just put the ball up and let him go get it over a 6'2" defensive back.
Yeah.
Like pull a Charlie Kohler or I can't even remember the other guys they've had over the years, but they just had seemingly 6'7" tight end after 6'7" tight end, and they know how to use those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I worry about the depth there too. I mean, and considering Stogner's history with injuries, it's like if he goes down, I mean, I really don't know who they turn to. And I guess they had that same issue last year with Braden Willis. I guess you had Daniel Parker, but he wasn't somebody that they totally relied on in the passing game at all. So I don't know. I guess they've played with it before, and it's another. They didn't really go after anybody in the portal either, so they must feel somewhat confident in what they have. And I know there's a couple other guys that you could maybe play tight end if they wanted them to. Heim, he's working at linebacker, right? I mean, he's a guy that you guys thought can maybe play tight end, right?
Yeah,
I think we were hoping he'd be like defensive end, be kind of like the next. God, why am I blanking on Ada?
Dan Cody.
Dan Cody, yeah.
I think in time he could. I mean, you look at what he's able to do on his track numbers are exceptional.
Yeah.
Like the guy can move. It's just he's one of those guys that you talk about skinny. He's gonna need. He's gonna need a couple summers.
He's only 202 pounds.
He's gonna need a couple summers with.
But that's the thing.
Jerry
You
Schmidt.
start him at linebacker. You get him to learn the defense. When he gets bigger, I mean, they did that with Jimmy Wilkerson and Dan Cody early in their careers.
And I think if you're talking about like 2024, 2025, you start moving down the line. Taylor Heim, I think, is going to be a really good player for Oklahoma.
I mean, they did the same thing with Jeremy Beal during his career, too. I mean, I'm being old man here.
And it could be one of those situations, too, that you just got to see if he can add the weight. I mean, I think he has a frame that could hold that, but he's going to have to put in the work.
I have a hat somewhere in my closet that I think Jeremy Beal signed. I thought he was the coolest back when I was like 12.
Continuing the tradition of great OU beat writers, Jason Kersey and
he had the Kewan Jones gloves.
Only the one glove. He lost the other one.
I just have the picture with Kel Gundy.
You have that picture?
Kewan Jones was my first ever jersey I think I ever had of any sports player. That, and I think I had a Brett Favre one, which should probably go in the trash.
Well, he's
now.
an upstanding citizen.
Did you upgrade to an Adrian Peterson one eventually?
I had an Adrian Peterson Vikings one. I became a Vikings fan when I was a kid.
That's hardcore.
Yeah.
Skull.
I don't know. Like, there's nothing that we haven't really covered with positions so far. I don't think it's kickers. I watched kickers the other day.
I haven't. My dad asked me the other day, how's the punting battle going? I was like, honestly, I've not paid attention, and I think most people will be like, who cares? I think that's actually kind of an important. I mean, I don't know who's going to be the punter.
When you're talking about a defense that has struggled as much as Oklahoma has, and they're supposedly making that jump this year, but pinning guys back in the red zone, it's going to be super important. I think, especially in big games. I mean, when you're talking about losing all the one-score games Oklahoma had a year ago, you got to look at every phase of the game. And
I was watching. The punters were over on the sideline, but he just kind of carries himself like Josh Plaster carries himself like he's the guy.
I think Josh Plaster has a magnificent lead. It's going to be – I think he's going to be your long-range guy, and then they're going to bring Lucas Elzinga in for pooch punting and pinning guys deep, and that's kind of his specialty. I'm interested in what happens at the field goal position.
I was going to say, do you think Schmidt has a little bit of a short leash? Or is he even the? I think he'll be this day one starter, I would assume.
I would imagine, but at the same time, I think Gavin Marshall has a pretty good leg. He pushed him throughout the year.
He looked good
a year ago.
Field goal stuff yesterday.
And it's one of those things too. It's like you asked Jay Nunez talked about it during spring ball, and the numbers don't look great for Zach Schmidt. I think it was 13 for 19 or 12 for 19 a year ago. But he misses. I think he missed at least one field goal in 3 of the last 4 games. He missed 2 up in Morgantown. Are you gonna?
Didn't he have one that was like they had him walk out there like it was like 55 yards
they
or something
put him in
in
a lot
the
of
rain, and
positions.
it was
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
what are they doing?
Are you going to punish him for missing 2 field goals in a monsoon up in Morgantown?
Yeah.
But at the
And
same
they
time,
were
he
kicked
misses
well.
the,
They just weren't through the uprights.
right. Like they had chances.
Yeah.
He just missed them.
Well, and the thing is, coming off of Gabe Burkich, like he reset the bar for what a kicker is at
Yeah.
Oklahoma in the modern era.
Sure.
Like Austin Seibert was the height of kicking at one point, and then Burkich came in and he's like hitting 50-yarders like their routine.
Yeah, they need a guy. And I think Zach Schmidt, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think that he might have struggled more 40 yards and in.
Yeah,
missing
I
chippies.
think that's right.
And that's where you need to shore it up. And especially when you're talking about, all the games that they lost by 3 points, the 4 games of the 7 that they lost by 3, shit like that matters.
Yeah.
But they were aggressive. Like I was talking to you about this. I think they were really good overall on special teams a year ago. For the most part, they had a couple fake field goals that worked really well. They had the fake field goal in Ames. They had the fake field goal in the Cotton Bowl. It worked out for them, but they need to be even better. They need to take another jump. As far as getting really good players out there on coverage teams and stuff like that.
Who do you guys think is going to be the returners? Is Drake kind of the penciled-in guy at punt return? And
I wouldn't be surprised if all Gavin Freeman ended up doing it.
oh, I'm going to look like an idiot because I said in the mailbag I thought for sure it'd be Drake.
What about Farouk? He's the guy that we always underestimate.
Well, I don't think you want to put your. I mean, you have
did it with
Mims back
Mims.
there. I don't know. I'm always
know where
cautious.
you were going, but
I'm always cautious. Yeah, I'm
now,
always cautious
kickoff
about
return.
that.
Like I so wanted to ask DeMarco Murray, like is he against running backs being on kickoffs because
it's I think kickers are so good now, and
it's not really a factor. Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things. Like, where do you weigh returning a kick versus just taking it at the 25 and going on?
I thought back when Trey Brown was here, they'd put him back there on certain occasions, and he made some game-changing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was
a kick return can change a game. There's no doubt about it.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, Lincoln basically gave up on returning. Like, he just wanted the ball back. And it was nice to see Brent come in and actually be a little aggressive on special teams. Like, have that Frank Beamer mentality where you can win games with special teams. And I think Brent believes that. He's always been a special teams coach and a kickoff guy. Like,
look at South Carolina and what they did a year ago. You can still win games in special teams.
yes.
I mean, they did it against Clemson a year ago.
Yeah, the one guy I will say do not put back there is Billy Bowman, just because if he gets
Don't wanna
hurt
lose
on,
him again?
Yeah, on a kickoff, it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Let Freeman do it. I don't know, Caleb Hicks or
You're not playing to win,
Smothers
George.
or-
You're playing not to lose.
I just worry about putting some of your I mean, especially at receiver when you really don't know what you got. I wouldn't put Farouk back there either, but that's just me. I think you have enough skill guys that can go back there and make a play that you don't want to lose a guy like Farouk off that.
It all depends on, the special teams because they become a winning factor.
Yeah.
And if it is, you got to take that risk.
I know Andrew Anthony's been working at it in practice.
That's another guy, yeah.
Peyton Bowen was phenomenal at it in high school, right? But
He's very good.
And maybe you put him back there because he's a freshman, but that's another guy that I'm like, man, you really don't want him to get hurt because I think he's going to end up playing a major role. But I don't know, it's something to watch because they do have to replace a guy like Mims on punt return. And then who returned kicks last year? Was it
Marcus Major did.
And did Bowman still, or did they take him off?
Bowman did
of
till
it?
he got hurt.
Yeah.
Golly, I mean, Eddie.
I thought Gray was back there. I'm looking.
Eddie's too busy worrying about downing the kick. He didn't pay attention to who's running it back.
That is fair. I'm looking to see. I had video of who the guys were that were working at it on Friday when we were out at practice, and I don't know if I can find it, but that all of those guys that you just mentioned were back there.
Yeah.
Does Xavier Worthy return kicks for Texas?
He did because he had the famous fumble on the one in the comeback game.
Oh, yeah.
He did his freshman year. I don't know if he did last year.
The one
for
that Caleb
Texas.
Kelly ripped away from him?
I believe that was Xavier Worthy.
But he did run it 80 yards before he
Yes.
had it ripped out. Well, I'm just wondering, Brennan Thompson, could he be a candidate with his speed?
Yeah. He's a guy. Again, they have bodies there that I think you. How about Petaway? I mean, I don't know if he was a guy that did that in high school, but when you talk about somebody with
have
speed,
the shake and the speed, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's again, you have options there that I wouldn't put guys like a Farouk or Bowman or even Stoops. I mentioned Stoops earlier. Maybe he'll let Freeman do it this year, but
the thing we don't know about that is, how sure-handed are they? Like, they can be fast and all that stuff, but just because you're fast doesn't mean you can track down balls.
Specifically, talking about punt return, these were the guys that were out there on Friday. LV Bunkley-Shelton, Andrell Anthony,
Drake.
Peyton Bowen, Drake, Billy Bowman, DJ Graham, and I think Gavin Freeman.
that's a lot of guys.
Trying to find them.
They should send them all. Put them all out there. Put them all out there.
So you can do it.
Just at one time.
Do you guys
put
think
all
you
six of them back there?
Do you think you could? Do you think you could catch a punt?
I've often thought about this. It's been one of my dreams for them to end practice early, and they pull a reporter out to catch a punt.
And
for,
it's you. It's
the guys aren't going to have to run after practice.
They get to run, or they get
or they get the day off or whatever,
or something.
Like they do over at NFL camps. And I can catch a kickoff. We've seen that. The punt, I think the punt's a different animal.
The problem with the kickoff, though, is you ended where you started. You didn't have to track it. It just came right.
It came right to me. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I will say I think Marvin Mims is going to be the Broncos' starting punt returner this year. So
going back and logging all the games that we had on film from last year, he was really damn good. There were a couple times that he almost he had those returns of 15 to 25 yards
that
where
almost broke.
It's just one guy away.
Yeah, and it's sad because when Lincoln was here, he never let him return it. But we kind of figured out last year. It was a reminder last year. Oh yeah, he can return punts.
Yeah,
and I'm telling you, Brent is out there working those guys' asses off on blocking. He just is. That's how he is as a coach.
It'll be kind of interesting to see if they get after a punter every once in a while. It feels like it's been forever since they've blocked a punt.
Yeah.
OU Texas, right? Not this last year, but 2 years ago. The comeback.
They had a punt blocked last year.
Yeah,
didn't Agwebu have one?
Did he?
He might.
I really can't remember.
Right.
That's I think it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
But you're right. But yeah, special teams was a big factor last year for them.
And overall, I would say it got a passing grade. I don't know if you want to give a letter grade to it, but I think that they were solid enough.
B.
Yeah, B minus maybe even for the missed field goals. But it's one of those
there's so many other problems with the team. Special teams got very little attention.
Sure. And,
they did give up some long kickoffs.
If you're talking about special teams, you got to talk about replacing Casey Keller. He was kind of a mainstay at snapper, and that's one of those things that is truly never a problem until it is.
Who's the holder?
It's a great question.
Probably.
Wasn't Turk the holder last year?
Turk was the holder last year. I don't know if Plaster would be it or Elzinga would be it. I didn't even notice when they were
Davis
practicing.
People lose their mind.
I would say
you're the one that takes all the Justin Fields pictures.
Justin Fields
or Justin Broyles. Talking to George. Inciting riots.
Hey, I'll say this. I think Justin Broyles is going to be a great coach.
No, it was Bob that did one the other day, wasn't it?
He might be.
I think Justin Broyles will be a great football coach.
I'm just not going to comment.
Well, no one. Well, this isn't the YouTube comment section. You don't have to worry about it. It's a podcast.
I don't know, man. I think that it would be good for Justin, and I think it'd be good for the Oklahoma program to maybe just not have him be around the program for just a year or two. Just I think it'd be good.
He
just good for everyone's sanity. I get
he's
it.
Not
but
playing.
I know, but it's just
Luke Elzinga was holding on Friday.
Well, there you go. I don't know. That might be a bad take. I just think it's one of those things that for everybody's, and I like Justin. I just think it's for everybody's mental sanity. It wouldn't hurt to just
to clean the palate a little bit.
Yeah, he's
the palate.
Been around the program forever. I don't know. Also, he's just a volunteer coach. I don't know if we ever cleared that up, but he's not a full-time GA or anything. And Brent kind of talked about that the other day too.
All right. Well, we'll be back to it. More coverage coming. Lots of stories still out there that the guys are writing. Lots more YouTube content. And Also, don't forget SoonerScoopStore.com. We are starting to ship again. We're set up, and I've got to fix the laptop. It's being wonky right now, but go check SoonerScoopStore.com. We've got pretty much everything in stock. Eddie and I are going to go through and kind of take stock of inventory and all that here before the season gets going, because we know a lot of people want to come by. We've had people stop by wanting to pick up a hat or a shirt, and never a bad thing. So to see you guys and meet you. Eddie had a fan, a DoorDash delivery driver today.
That's right.
You got some love today, which was nice.
That's right. It made me feel good. I hold off.
He didn't ask for
one
a
more
hug
day
like
before
the
I end
Amazon
it.
driver did with me, but nobody's keeping score or anything.
Well, then it's 1,000,000 to 2.
So, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast from SoonerScoop.com.